Hey gang, this is a recording I did with my wife a couple days ago, early in the week, where we're all staying home during the COVID-19 outbreak. This is before we had our earthquake in Salt Lake City and started wondering when the tornado or plague of frogs or whatever was going to hit. One thing I wanted to say, gang, is I'm really lucky or blessed or advantaged maybe, but I can work from home. I know a lot of people can't and are losing their jobs right now. So if you're in that category, I've been researching. I'm putting a couple of links in the description about where to look for help. Haven't found much, but I know there are funds set up for various groups. So talk to people in your social network, your work groups, to see if there's a fund that you could ask for help from. And I'd say if you've been blessed like I have to keep your job, but somehow get a relief check or something from the government, start reaching out to your people network. You will definitely know one or more folks who have no income now and need the help more than people who still have a job. You could use a check for $1,000 to buy groceries for 5 families for a couple of weeks. And I promise I'll put my money where my mouth is if any relief check shows up in my mailbox. On a less serious note, we referenced the camera, but I scrapped the video as it was only me, and I looked pretty tired through most of the recording, so ditch that. Also, I poke fun of Utah here, but bear in mind, we live in Utah, and we're pretty good about making fun of ourselves. Also, we mentioned a few permaculture resources, books and podcasts, and so on. I'll link to them in the description. So thanks for listening, and on to the episode.
The sky is falling. It really is.
But
So
let's
talk about yes, thank you.
You're welcome. So what do we do about it? Well, lots of things. But we wash our hands and we stay home.
Distance. So Jeff and I are a good 6 feet apart from each other, and we make sure that we don't. Yeah. Sorry, camera, you can't see me.
Over
just
there.
My voice.
What is it? They have a limit of 10 people or something are supposed to be together, and Utah families are trying to figure out who's going to live outside. Sorry, Utah. We love you.
So, right now it's one day at a time because none of us know where this is going, and we're Jeff and I, we're trying to keep all of us obviously from getting sick, but the biggest worry is my parents, who happen to live in our neighborhood, and they are, in the higher risk category. And
we have a son who's off at school who's higher risk just from health issues and things.
Asthma.
Happily, they're out in the middle of nowhere. So
yeah.
And they're taking a really good. His school is doing a really good job. Of dealing with that.
So I think long term there'll be more things to talk about, but right now it's finding a way to thank goodness you can work from home. I know not everybody can, and not every business that people are employed at is going to stay open. So those effects are going to be felt, but I keep going back to the negative.
Yeah,
so
lots of ripples. But this is what's been making us think a lot more about self-reliance and, what if the systems that we rely on do go south and aren't available, food, medical, and so on. And so this has been a recurring theme for us for years, I guess, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Ever since
like
2009 or something. Back in 2009, back in the old days, 10 years ago, and change. But this co-op came up, and it's kind of fascinating. So you get a couple acres of land in Utah, dirt cheap. 20 grand.
Dirt cheap.
Well, in Utah.
They're funny.
For not much money. Compared to
out in the middle of nowhere.
You buy a quarter acre of land in Utah County where we live, and you can pay $100 or more for it. This is $2,000. There's 2 acres, 20 grand. But you have some requirements. You need to put a house of a minimum square feet. I guess there's
800, I think.
square feet, and then you need a little space set aside for an orchard, a space for a garden, a space for a
greenhouse.
Thank you.
Not a space. You have
you have to actually have the greenhouse.
Have them set up within 3 years, I think.
And it's interesting as we've thought about that, because you need to contribute to the co-op in some fashion or other. Otherwise, what's the point of it being a co-op?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a farmer.
No.
I'm an IT guy. And it's really easy to have a home-based business if you work at it and get things set up. But, there's other things to be done if you're going to be self-reliant. Mm-hmm. Because internet goes away.
Right.
So you've been looking at permaculture.
I have been.
What's the book that you've been reading a bunch of?
If you told me to
Gaia,
bring it up, I would have.
Gaia's
Garden.
Gaia's Garden.
It's an older book. It's one that I had pre the internet being a big resource that I kept keeping
before
because
Al Gore invented it.
Right. But I've been underlining so much of it because I keep telling Jeff, "Oh, listen to this." It just is so fascinating to me how nature responds when left. So if you deplete a farmland and you leave it because things don't work out for you, nature will take over. And everything it does has a purpose. And, we live in Utah, so it's a desert here. So I don't know that we would be regrowing forests, but the mountains have them. So maybe they're... But even the weeds that come up first, the ones that us gardeners are always, battling against... they come up first.
Mention, you are a gardener. You and your mother are serious gardeners.
My mother is.
We could show you pictures.
Yes. So anyway,
but things that'll.
Yeah.
Happen.
So everything happens at. Nature will start with the weeds, the invasive weeds, which honestly, if you're an herbalist, a lot of those can be used and are edible and medicinal and whatnot, but. And then it goes to the perennials, and it has this over a period of years until it goes back to forest land if you have the rain and things like that. And here in Utah, it's possible to build things up and provide a source of water using permaculture methods that is pretty fascinating that, you normally wouldn't think of that you could do in a place like Utah. But
well, we do get some rain.
We do get some rain.
And if you capitalize on that and use it properly.
Right.
You were showing me a neat thing the other day with trees arranged in a diamond pattern, a tree at each corner of these diamonds, and it goes into a lattice where the lines between the trees are collecting water.
Yeah,
right?
They had they dug around the trees and then they dug trenches in this lattice work so that when it rains, the water gets diverted through these lattice trenches so that the trees get to harvest the water. So there's lots of things you can do, even in a place like Utah that's a desert and doesn't have an abundance of some of those resources.
And with the right greenhouse, you can grow citrus.
Yes, that's my dream. I want to grow citrus in Utah. And I know some people that do that already, and I'm going to go and learn from them, hopefully.
Are they nearby?
Let's see. His name's Chad, and I'm sorry, Chad, but I don't remember your name. Mitchell or something. Yeah.
Okay. I know there's a guy in Montana or something that...
No, there's one in Utah, but he's up, I don't know, Ogden, Layton, up somewhere.
Okay.
A few hours from here.
It's a different world.
Mm-hmm. It's just fascinating to me because I want, right now everybody's focus is on survival. So, but looking ahead outside of that, I love the thought of applying these principles and following what nature does in everything from our own gardens to, because honestly, there is no gardener out there in the rich, lush forest lands. And so if you do this right, most of the work is up front, and then nature takes care of things, and there's so many checks and balances and so many redundancies that, the need for what we normally think of a gardener, is so much less. And I love that as far as food production, but also applying that to other areas of our life and coming out of this crisis when that happens we're going to be facing a new economy of some sort. We are undergoing massive shifts, and I think permaculture principles can apply and be really helpful.
Well, what's amazing is that you can apply them to so many different things.
Mm-hmm.
The survival podcast, Jack Spirko, is one I've been listening to for years, and he's talked several times about applying permaculture principles, which are ostensibly just for agriculture, but to business, to relationships and other things, and it really transcends just gardening. It transcends plants and the outdoors.
Yeah. And I heard about this first from Jack Spirko through my husband. And I'm so fascinated by it. And I'm starting to find some resources online, not as many. So I may need to, be the one that starts writing the books or something, starts publishing the ideas and starts practicing them. It just, for some reason, it's really exciting to me.
What's something that you picked up lately that has really engaged you? Well, you were just listening to regenerative economy.
Yeah, using permaculture principles to an economy, or to the economy. And I'm halfway through that, so the jury's still out.
That sounds way better.
But I want to learn it.
Because everything we seem to do in our society right now is very engineered. Mm-hmm.
It's not sustainable.
We garden and we farm in rows. We pull out everything and we plant what we want, acres and acres of corn or grain or whatever. And that's not how nature works.
And then you have to bring in, it's called monocrops or whatever. Then you have to cart in all the nutrients that nature would provide naturally. And the rain, and then you have to pull out the weeds, and it's not the way nature works. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and the pests flourish in monocrop cultures, but when there's checks and balances, there's pests that will eat the bad pests, and there's enough diversity of plants that it doesn't attract the pests in the same way. Anyway. It's really exciting.
No, it is really exciting. And I think about it in terms of the economy. We over-engineer the economy. And, there are checks and balances in an economic system that's left to its own. Unfortunately, that ends up with, when you're talking about nature, checks and balances, what was the one story you were telling me about? Someone had, what was it, cattails or something like that?
Oh, yeah.
And some animal came in and was making...
Was it muskrats?
I forget, muskrats or something. And then some other animal came in and took care of that population. Otters?
Yes. Oh. It was the San Juan Islands in Seattle. I was going
to say, this wasn't in Tennessee.
This is in Washington. But so over time, there were checks and balances, and then the cattail population recovered. And,
Yeah, we need an interesting, I don't know. You can't really experiment with stuff on an economic scales very well because, the cattails are there, but they get trampled by whatever it was, the muskrats, and the otters come in and take care of the muskrats. Well, when it's people, right?
Well, you start small.
You can't.
Always. You start small and then you scale up.
Yeah. And when we leave things to their natural devices, some people suffer, and I guess that's what we're trying to figure out in the long term. But... And people have different ways of doing that. Capitalists, socialists.
I know what I was going to say. So one of the principles, I guess, is you build in a lot of redundancy. And I've been thinking about that a lot. Mm-hmm. And, financially, think about that. You don't put all your eggs in one basket. You have a diversified portfolio, whatever. But, you built in a lot of things. So if one thing goes bad, now it's kind of strange where everything is going down. But even then, I'm sure toilet paper manufacturers right now are hiring, would be my guess. But you build in lots of redundancy. And I was thinking about that as far as power goes. So if the electric grid goes down, say you have solar, and then you have a backup generator, and then you have a wood stove or a fireplace with wood, and then maybe some propane lamps, or I don't know, lots of different sources. So if something goes down, you've got other things in place to fill that need until it comes back up. And I think that would be...
Doing that on an economic level would be really interesting.
Yeah.
How would one do that? Or how would a society do that?
Well,
I don't know.
I just had a few ideas about, having, not all of your eggs in one basket, and you've got money from a job here, but then you've got a garden, so you've got things coming in, and then you had saved up some gold and silver, but then, if there was no market for that, and you can't eat that, you also have your stores of food that can be stored safely and long term. And, there's many areas that you cover.
Yeah. And we're a just-in-time society.
Right.
We're running out of something, and we hit up Amazon. It's here in 2 days.
Yeah.
I was just, Michael Ostrom, I forget. He's an expert in the field of viral infections like COVID-19 and things, and he was just being interviewed and talking about the N95 masks that are the ones that actually protect you. The ones that are more like construction mask prep, and there's a shortage of those because it's a just-in-time thing that we need a few thousand more of those for the hospital. We order it, it's here in a couple of days, and it's done. We're not prepared for this. The IV bags are made, where did he say they're made? In like one place. And there's a shortage of those right now. There's a lot of medicines that are made in China. China's struggling right now. Yeah. And we don't save up those things.
So you look for a problem and find ways to solve it. And then the more people you serve, the more successful your endeavor.
And that's one thing we were talking about yesterday was, this reminds me of the crash of 29. A lot of people came out on the other end of that really rich, while a ton of people were suffering. And some of the differences, and some would argue, oh, well, they took advantage, yada, yada, but it's not necessarily so. In anything that happens like this, there are ways to come out of it better on the other side, if one thinks about it. Yeah. And I don't know what those ways are, but I'll leave that to... It's individual. Yeah, it's individual. But I'm hoping that our society will come out better on the other end of this. Hopefully, the toll and lies and stuff will be very small, and we'll get it through our thick skulls that we need to make we needed to make some different choices about how we structure our individual lives, our business lives.
Yeah, I think we should all use this time at home to really reevaluate what's important and start seriously thinking about what changes can we make. And we could start making them now. I mean, technology, which I guess we need redundancies for that, because that could go away too. But too bad I don't have a horse for when there's no cars or bicycles or whatever. Anyway, no, I think it's a great time to really reevaluate and make some changes going forward. And I think collectively, I mean, I knew that something like this wouldn't happen unless there was a major, major thing. I never thought it would be a pandemic. I never thought it would be like this. I mean, earthquake or EMP or something, but this has been just how the entire world has been affected. We've got to come out of this different.
I hope this is just going to be a nudge. Hey, world, get your crap in order.
A wake-up call.
A wake-up call. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. A lot of people are getting woken up. And I remember 9/11 and how woken up we were after that. And that didn't last for long.
I know. Yeah, that's the thing. Once things go back to the status quo, that's the risk. We've got to make sure that we keep this in mind, because this may only just be the beginning. I predict there will be more.
There's going to be more coming, yeah.
Read scripture.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot
Prophecy.
of stuff coming. I mean, through science or prophecy or both. I mean, it all points. Even if you say if you're
through economics,
if you're an absolute atheist, look at the science. There's other things coming. There's economic things coming. There are more viruses out there than we could shake a stick at.
Natural disasters.
What does that even mean? Why would I shake
Google
a stick at things?
Google it, but we're on air, so
I'll look it up later.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just hoping this is going to be more of a wake-up call
that lasts.
That is
really
long
has
enough. What do you even ask for?
Sorry, I don't over you.
I don't want any. Well, hey, we can do. But we got 2 mics. I don't want anyone to die. I don't want anyone to lose their livelihood. I don't. But I do want people to start having these conversations. If we could do that without a pandemic, that would be best.
Yeah, there's a scripture somewhere that says that, blessed are, the poor who are humble, but how more blessed are those who humble themselves because of the word that don't have to be compelled to be humble. So I take that to mean, if we didn't have to have an emergency of this magnitude, if we could all make these changes without needing to be compelled to, then we probably wouldn't have to be compelled to. But considering we haven't, and we haven't made that course.
Yeah, and the whole reason that's there, that scripture exists, I think, is because people tend to not do that. People tend to just take whatever's easiest today. And we live in a really easy world today in America and Europe.
We did till last week.
A lot of people living in a lot less easy world.